or record.
Police officer.
There you go. There it goes. All right, cool. I'm just gonna wait like 3 seconds and then start. And how's it going, everybody? Welcome into Earth Day 2020, presented by MavRadio.fm. Not ideal circumstances, but we are still here doing a show, and we have some great stories on tap for you today. Thanks for joining us. We're doing it over Zoom, obviously with the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak. Forced us to change things a little bit, but we're still putting this show together. I am Ben Howick, joined by my good friend Matt Kirkle. Matt, how are you doing today?
I mean, this is definitely unique circumstances indeed. It's cool to see Earth Day being done every year. This year, obviously, we're having to, play with the situation, the current climate of America right now, having to do this on Zoom. But I'm really excited to be here. I think this is going to be a great event. Like you said, a lot of great stories on tap today. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have some awesome stories on tap today. Some things that look at nature, some things that look at the world we live in, some things that look at the people in our world. What to you, Matt, does Earth Day mean? I think it's something that can mean a lot of different things, and you'll see that over the course of some of these stories today. What does Earth Day mean to you?
Honestly, I think the best answer to that question, in my opinion, is honestly, it can mean so many different things. And like you said, you'll see that with these stories. I mean, we have stories that branch in so many different genres that don't just center around the simplicity of just Earth Day. We have things that, go as far as the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We have stories that, tie into many different genres all surrounding, Earth Day. And I think that that's really cool that you can find so many different things to find meaning in Earth Day. So I think that that's really cool. And I think there's so many different ways that, you can find ways for Earth Day to be meaningful to you. But I think that this is going to be a very, very cool event for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And something MavRadio we like to do every single year. So we're still very happy to be doing it this year. And we're going to kick things off with a story about a former president that had his start right here in Omaha. The election is fast approaching this November, and the Democratic primaries for Nebraska are happening next month. Out of the 45 presidents that have served in the United States, one of them is from Omaha. Reporter Joey Colbert walks through the birth site and tells the story of former U.S. President Gerald R. Ford. The Gerald R. Ford birth site is open to the public. The birth site is host to several weddings, senior pictures, and family pictures. If you want to visit a private exhibit at the Conservation Center, you can call or email them to schedule in a visit. We now bring in Joey Colbert. Joey was going to be at the site today, but obviously has been closed due to the coronavirus. Joey, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing pretty good, Ben. How are you doing?
Good. Looks like you're enjoying the nice weather here in the month of April. On your visit to Gerald R. Ford's birthplace, what's the current condition of the place and what goes on there?
Well, I mean, it's a beautiful park. You see a little exhibit at the gazebo with all the belongings from Ford, like golf clubs. You see a replica of the dollhouse for the original home, but pretty much there was an accident, as mentioned in the story a couple of months ago. They have been working on fixing the pillars. That's all done, the brick pillars. They just need to fix up the fence. Last month, I visited the gazebo, and one of the windows had a few holes in them. They looked like bullet holes, but I'm not sure if they're fixed right now, but I'm sure they'll fix them in the future.
And you mentioned the house isn't standing today. What happened to Ford's birth home? You mentioned it a little bit. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, the house was on fire in 1971. There was a fire. I did not see what the cause was, but the fire did not burn down the house. The fire was just so bad that the city of Omaha decided to tear the place down. So in 76, they actually turned the place into a memorial or a birth site conservation center for Gerald Ford. And fortunately, he was president around that time.
It's pretty cool to have a name like Gerald R. Ford attached to the city of Omaha. What are some of the interesting facts you learned about Ford in his early days here in Nebraska?
Well, he was only here for 13 days, and then his mother divorced his original father, then married Gerald Rudolph Ford, which is his father's name. They moved to Grand Rapids, and Ford attended the University of Michigan, as mentioned in the story. He played football for the Wolverines. And for, I think, 3 years, he led the Wolverines to 2 consecutive undefeated seasons, 2 national championships. He played center, long snapper, and linebacker. Also, he went to law school at Yale, and then because after Pearl Harbor, he was inspired to serve in the Navy at World War II in the Pacific.
Very cool stuff, Joey. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for the story. Stay safe. Love the shades, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ben.
Matt?
Yeah, we actually have a great story coming up. From the outside of the Felius Cat Cafe, you can already see paintings of cats. And as you walk in, into this quaint cafe, you can already smell the aroma of the best smelling coffee imaginable. Reporter Jeremy Davis takes us on a tour of the Felius Cat Cafe and what the place is all about. If you would like to, I'll start over real fast. All right. If you would like to take a visit to the Felius Cat Cafe, you can book online or just drop off in to start enjoying the best the Cat Cafe has to offer. The whole cafe menu is listed on their website, felius.org. Reporter Jeremy Davis couldn't be at the cafe, obviously, today with the conditions, but he's standing by, ready to answer some questions. Jeremy, first and foremost, can you tell us how the adoption process works if you want to potentially take home one of the cats at the cafe?
Yeah, so it's actually quite easy. So you just head on over to felius.org, and they actually have all their policy and their standards and everything on their website. And then you can click Adopt Now, and it takes you to this link. And you just fill out an application that kind of get started and get in line to get a cat. It's quite easy, very awesome.
Now, how long does it take typically for a cat to find a home?
So it all depends on getting the right person to walk in and see that cat. And usually it doesn't take very long. It usually happens in the first couple of weeks. And it's real easy to find cats homes when you can just hang out with them for an hour or so and get to know them, and then you want to take them home.
And the cat cuddle room is definitely the moneymaker, something that interests me, something that makes me want to go there. How much does it cost to enter the cat cuddle room?
All right, so it costs for the smallest amount of time, it's $7.50 for 30 minutes. And then for an hour session, it costs $14. And then after that, each additional hour is $10. So it's not a whole lot, but it's still enough. And what it does is it goes and it gets donated to the cats to help them.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, are there any final thoughts or comments that you'd like to make regarding the Felius Cat Cafe?
Yeah, just a couple of things. And so on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, if you bring in your student ID, there's actually a student discount on the cat room. And so you can get 25% off by doing that. So that's a great deal for students. And also, I wanted to, have you meet the cats over the call, but we couldn't do that today. And so if anybody wants to head online, they have a couple cats right now. You can go to Adopt Now and see what cats they have on there right now. There's a couple of cute ones you can check out. Bugson, Jillian, and McLaurin. They're all very nice felines. And so thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for telling such a great story about the Felius Cat Cafe. Back to you, Ben.
Thanks, Matt. Part of what makes Earth Day so special is talking about the ways we can help improve the Earth we live in. And as people are becoming more aware of the carbon footprint, they want to find ways to help to reduce it. With the limits of recycling, people are pushing a new movement, living waste-free. Reporter Sophia Ridder explains the impacts of single-use plastics and how to work towards a waste-free lifestyle. Exist Green opened this year. During this time, it was held in, Exist Green opened this year. During this time, it has held informational talks to teach people more about the impacts of their waste. They also offer free composting to anyone, which includes all food waste. You can visit them Tuesday through Sunday at 4914 Underwood Avenue in Dundee. We're now joined by Sophia Ridder. Sophia, thanks for joining us today. First question, how has Exist Green adapted for the coronavirus?
So Exist Green, like many businesses, has to operate completely different than normal. Right now, they are only taking deliveries when you have to go up to their front door, and you have to order either by emailing them at orders@existgreen.com or by calling them and submitting an order on their website. Right now, they are just one of many small businesses struggling in Omaha because of the pandemic, and they are currently making 40 to 50% of what they usually do. She's had to reduce her staff down to just herself and her manager, but she's feeling pretty optimistic. She says that her loyal customers are really helping her right now, and she thinks they'll be able to make it through this.
And obviously, because of this pandemic, many grocery stores aren't allowing customers to bring bags from home because they are worried about them being contaminated. If bags aren't safe, how is it safe to bring in your own containers?
So Exist Green, you normally bring in your own containers, and regardless of an ongoing pandemic or not, they are always sanitized before they are used. And so right now, in order to keep their store waste-free, because that's their full mission, they're asking people to come in and donate their own tomato jars, pasta jars, old jars, just so they can keep it waste-free. And all of their products are thoroughly sanitized, so it's just as safe as getting any other product from a grocery store right now.
Obviously, we're always trying to limit our carbon footprint. What's one waste-free product you're going to start incorporating into your life?
Well, my big thing is I'm trying to eliminate the unnecessary single-use plastic in my life, such as Ziploc bags or pop bottles and water bottles, just because even though we think when we recycle something, we are getting rid of the impact it has in the environment, we truly aren't. It is just like throwing it away. So I'm just trying to keep in my mind, every time I throw something away, that item will then last centuries. So is it really worth it for convenience of one water bottle?
It's an awesome point to make. Why is it just as important ever now to be considering your carbon footprint?
I was talking about Lee with this the other day, and she agreed with me that right now we have way more time in our lives than we normally do. And it's a great time to kind of reevaluate how we're living and use this extra time to maybe think about starting composting, think about more effective ways we can be more effective ways we can just care about the environment right now.
Thank you, Sophia. Thanks for your story. Enjoy the weather, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Matt?
Now, sticking on the feline trend, similar to the story that we had earlier from Jeremy, cats make up the backbone of the internet with their adorable, expressive faces and their viral videos. But do your fluffy friends harbor something a little less adorable? A reporter R.C. Miller highlights a study going on right here at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, that involves your feline friends and what you can do to help the study. If you are interested in this research project and would like to help contribute, feel free to go to toxoproject.com and you can read more and take the Toxo Knowledge Survey. Now, R.C. Miller joining us right now. I have some questions for you regarding your story. How many cats in the local Omaha area are infected with this disease?
Well, right now, it looks like about 12% of the feline population in Omaha, Nebraska is infected with the parasite, which is actually a little bit lower than average. Usually it's around 20%, so it's pretty decent in Omaha.
And how worried should people be about this parasite potentially affecting their lives?
Really, most people don't have to worry unless they're immunocompromised in some fashion, or even if you're pregnant, as long as you take some precautions such as using gloves and stuff when you clean out the litter box, you should be fine. Most normal, healthy adults, they can go their whole lives without ever having to worry about this parasite.
Now, this project has already kind of developed into its second phase. How is this project progressing as a whole?
It's actually progressing, well, prior to the outbreak, it was progressing fairly well. They were sending out GPS trackers. They got their second shipment of GPS trackers in for cats, and they were getting them in, and recording data was coming in pretty quickly to monitor the progression of the parasite.
Well, RC, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about an interesting parasite that, frankly, I didn't know about going into this that really could affect a lot of everyday people, but a great story, and thank you so much. Back to you, Ben.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, RC. We now bring in Kevin Kabor, who ventured outside the box to tell a story and also give us some insight on an event he covered earlier this year. First off, Kevin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself, Ben?
Good, good. Thank you again for joining us. So you made the intro to our broadcast that led us off here. Had footage of the empty cities, obviously with COVID-19. What was your thought process making the video like that, and sort of the stylistic way you created it?
Yeah, so originally I had a complete opposite plan and scripted and even shot the video, but then COVID-19 happened and I thought it would be oblivious not to incorporate that in some way. So that's why the empty cities and all that came about.
Yeah, exactly. We're living in a crazy time. I think you mentioned that the Earth Day, this is going to be different than any other. What do you think the significance that this Earth Day can have, obviously, while we're being a little bit more reflective on the Earth that we live in?
I think it'll be impactful because we see in Italy and China that the skies have cleared and the water have become more clear than ever before. So that is also going into Sophia's waste-free process. Like us being home and not wasting as much as usual has a positive impact on Earth. So we are the problem and we need to be the solution.
Very insightful. And additionally, to the video you made, you covered the MLK rally earlier this year. Going to do a story on that. Obviously, ulterior things led to that change. But can you speak about what that experience was like for you to cover that MLK rally?
Yeah, that was very impactful for me because most of it was done by high schoolers to elementary school students. So they were between the ages of 7 to 10 to 17. So seeing them that passionate and engaged about bringing change was inspiring to see.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the insight. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Matt, back to you.
Yeah, now we go to Lillian Griffith's really powerful story here. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed discrimination based on race, religion, and sex in the United States. It's a difficult topic for most people to tackle because 1964 wasn't that long ago, and African-American history wasn't taught in schools until the 1970s. The boomer generation often protested learning Black history in schools. According to NBC News, most students don't hear of Black history much beyond Harriet Tubman, a limited view of slavery, and Martin Luther King. African-American history has not, I'll start over. African-American history has only been in the United States textbooks for 49 years. America is 240 years old, to put that in perspective. There's a lot more history to be added to our education system, and 2 lessons a year does not add up to Professor Jennifer Harber. Lillian Griffith now joins us. Now, first and foremost, why did you choose a story like this?
I chose a story like this because, I mean, it's an issue that's not really talked about in our country. 1 to 2 lessons per year isn't fair to kids. There's a lot more than the Industrial Revolution and colonization that goes on in our history.
And, you know, like you said, there's a lot of things that are left out of curriculums. What are some of the things that you've learned from learning an experience, a powerful experience like this that deals with America's history as a whole?
Yeah, so I learned they only get 1 to 2 lessons. And then that most of this stuff really settles in at 4th grade, and that they don't get this in high school either. So I just learned that stuff resonates at a young age, and you need to start there to kind of really make an impact. And then the older they get, the less meaning it has the older they learn it.
And how can the average person make a difference when it comes to the inclusion of African-American education?
If you have a concern with education in your area, contact your superintendent. Ask what your kid's learning in school. Make sure that they're actually getting an adequate education. So it's really important for the future because that's the next generation. Yeah, very important topic indeed. Lillian, thank you so much for covering a story like that and taking a chance to talk to us. Very, very powerful piece. Back to you, Ben.
Well, Matt, spring is in the air, which offers a fresh new opportunity to get active and in shape. Reporter Drew Peterson had the pleasure to interview a few people from the University of Nebraska Medical Center gym to have them share about their experience on what it's finally like to have nice weather back and get their exercise. The Center for Healthy... One of these days, we'll start one of these anchor outs, right? One of these days. The Center for Healthy Living is a gym that offers various memberships for people not only around UNMC, but also around the UNO campus. Have the pleasure now of welcoming in Drew Peterson. Drew, describe to me the Center for Healthy Living gym.
Well, the Center for Healthy Living gym is a gym that is open to all the University of Nebraska, and it has tons of rooms. It has an elliptical room, weight room, and a gym, and then all kinds of fitness classrooms. So yeah, it's one of the best gyms to go to work out.
Now, Drew, after you've talked to some of the experts in this field, do people come into the gym more in the winter or in the spring and the summertime?
Well, they come in more in the winter than the spring because it's impossible to exercise outside during the winter because of how cold it is, and to do anything outside during the winter because normally people in the spring will be out walking around and exercising or running or doing all those other kind of activities.
Now, Drew, what's your opinion or experience on exercising in the spring more than in the winter? It can be a little bit easier to get out once it's springtime.
Yes, it really can get easier in the springtime. The reason why I think of that is because normally I'm more motivated to work out in the spring than the winter, because normally I get to the gym during the spring, but with all the gyms closed during the pandemic, sometimes I walk around the neighborhood that I live in. Either I walk around or I jog, just to get out and get some exercise, because all the gyms are now closed because of the pandemic. So yeah, that's why I think it's a better time to exercise in the spring than in the winter.
Drew, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Now, Matt, I know I've been trying to get out and get active, and it's hard. I know you've been trying to do the same thing, but trying to stay active at this time is really tough.
It really is. And I mean, I think everybody collectively is finding unique ways to do it, whether it be going on walks, just finding different ways to stay within your little bubble and go outside. I mean, there's many different things you can do. And I think people are, coming up with very unique ways to try to do that. And I think that's really healthy for a lot of people, not only physically, but mentally. I think being able to get outside and enjoy some fresh air in a time like this where there's a lot of uncertainty, I think that's really good for everybody. And frankly, I think everybody needs to keep taking advantage of this situation that we're all kind of stuck in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And just trying to get out and even in the backyard and throw around the ball with the dog is even a little bit better than just staying inside all day. But you're right. But now we have to shift gears to a little bit more serious story that we have on tap here, Matt.
Yeah, Ashanti Allen with a great story about a problem that's really been plaguing the city of Omaha for a while. When you drive into Omaha, you're welcome with the Union Pacific Railroad train car lit up and shining bright. You hear people talk about how Omaha is a great place to live and a great place to raise your family. However, there's an underlying issue that's not necessarily mentioned when you're looking for a house, childcare, or just a place of belonging. Ashanti Allen has a great story about the soil lead issue in the city of Omaha. Lead continues to be a problem for Omaha residents as the cleanup project rolls along. Ashanti Allen is now joined with us live to answer some questions on that matter. Now, Ashanti, what exact areas are a part of this super fun cleanup that's going on?
So like the north areas, like downtown areas in South Omaha, nothing past 72nd, but more of like the downtown and more into the north area is affected.
Now, is the lead moving, or is it just kind of in that area to stay and, not really moving around because it's kind of the soil stays stationary?
Well, it's not moving, but when the cleanup process is being done, that soil is picked up and placed into another area, and the lead in the soil is still contaminated.
So is there a cleanup process for the Council Bluffs area, considering its close proximity to the North Omaha area?
Council Bluffs area, no, there is not a plan as of now. Probably in the near future there could be, but as of right now, there is no plan for that cleanup in the Council Bluffs area.
And with the lead being so engraved in the soil over the last, however many decades, how can one person, say, living at a house with soil being infected with lead, how can a person become infected with lead?
A person like I said, children, they like to play outside. So anything with like playing in the soil, putting their hands in their mouth, some of those lead has spread onto the houses. So there's lead paint. So even like paint chips, kids can pick those up and put them in their mouth. What they're asking is that when you come in the house, you make sure you wash your hands, you vacuum up those paint chips that you see, and just try to keep a clean house so that contamination can be low.
Well, Ashanti, thank you so much for talking about this. I know it's a story you've covered in the past, so you're kind of an expert when it comes to this topic. I appreciate you sharing your insight with all of us. Great story. Ben, back to you.
Well, Matt, a living museum of unique 4-season plant displays maintained to the highest standards consistent with environmental stewardship is how it is described. Omaha, Nebraska is home to the largest botanical gardens here in the United States, known as Lauritzen Gardens. Go discover a hidden sanctuary in the heart of the city right after you learn about its great history. Reporter Jack Delperdang has more. Lauritzen Gardens hosted 220,000 visitors last year, up from the previous 2 years, and is currently doing very well with more than 12,000 member households. As you can tell, Lauritzen Gardens has had some major history behind it, and now we bring in Jack Delperdang to talk about some of that history. Jack, you were going to be at Lauritzen Gardens today. Obviously, unforeseen circumstances limited that, but describe some of your past experiences at the gardens.
Yeah, I went to the gardens for a different class just to get some video, and I ended up spending a lot more time there than I thought. They have the parking garden and the arrival garden, which out in front during the spring can be really beautiful. And since I did go in the spring, they had the Rose Garden Staircase and Woodland Waterfall. Those were in season, and those were really beautiful. So just spent a lot more time there than I expected to.
What new exhibits, if any, do they have, or maybe if they have, if you've had a favorite exhibit that you saw while you were there?
When I talked with, when I interviewed Jim Locklear and Spencer Cruz, they had just come out with the Lego exhibit, and it's Lauriston Gardens is currently closed right now, I believe. But once they reopen, and then they said that they don't have any plans for anything in the future, but that they'll start thinking about that coming up soon, because those take a couple years to develop.
Very cool. I was hoping to get to that Lego exhibit myself before it moved out, but if someone were to visit the gardens, how long should they put aside for their visit?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the season that you're in, because if you go in the spring, as I did, as I mentioned, they have the Rose Garden and the Woodland Waterfall, along with the parking and arrival garden. So that would probably be like 2 hours, I would say. But even if you go in the winter when they don't have that, or the flowers within those exhibits aren't in bloom, they still have the conservatory inside, which can take up a bunch of time. And the inside of the building is really beautiful as well.
Absolutely. And with the zoo being so close, sometimes maybe Lauriston Gardens falls to the wayside, but certainly a hidden gem as far as Omaha is concerned. Thanks, Delp. All right, Matt, back to you.
Yeah, Ben, there are nearly 1.3 million active military members in the United States, and behind each military member, there are countless family members joining them through this tough process. Jessica Salinas dives into one veteran's life to see what he had to sacrifice for our country. We want to thank all our military members as well as their family members for their continued service to our country. Now, Jessica Salinas joins us now. Now, Jessica, at what age can you join the military legally?
So you can join at the age of 17, but you would need your parents' consent. You can join at the age of 18 without your parents' consent, but you have to join before you're the age of 35.
And when looking at military members, a lot of the times people forget how tough it is for people, necessarily living at home, waiting for their family members to come back. Is there a branch in particular that maybe has a more difficult issue with relationships? Like, is there a branch that maybe has like the highest divorce rate?
Yeah, there is. According to military.com and Market Watch, they were looking at like how they got deployed and like how long they've been away from their family. And that branch would be the Navy. I guess they have like a 9 to 12 months time of deployment. So that's the biggest branch that gets divorced.
So when did Jimmy graduate from his 20 years of service in the military?
So he graduated in 2017. So not that long ago.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for diving into such an interesting story, dealing with family members and their difficulties, trying to stay in touch with their loved ones in the military. Definitely a great story. Ben, back to you.
Thanks, Matt. And that does it for our stories today. Obviously, a little bit different than we usually do our Earth Day event, but it's still a tradition around here. We love doing it. And I think doing it under these circumstances, Matt, honestly makes you kind of appreciate the world we live in, how important the Earth is, how important it is to get out and to make a difference in the environment, the people that make up this world and how unique each one is. I think it's just cool to reflect on that we're doing it within our own houses, but it also makes us appreciate just how nice of a world we live in.
Very much so. I mean, like you said, it puts it in perspective. There's a lot of people right now who are dealing with a lot of difficult situations surrounding the current climate in this country, a lot of families that are hurting right now. So the fact that we can sit here behind our computer screens and cover some really cool stories about Earth Day, things going around the city of Omaha, different businesses, shining some light on those. I think that that's super cool that we get that opportunity. And this is something that we're going to remember forever. I mean, being able to do a show like this behind a computer screen. I mean, this is something that history books are going to detail for decades. This is history in the making right here, the fact that we're even doing a show over a computer screen. So I think that this is an excellent opportunity for myself, for you, and for everybody involved. And this has been tremendous. This has been excellent being able to do a show like this. Yeah,
fantastic points by you. I echo every sentiment. As always, Matt, it was fun doing one of these with you. I appreciate it. From all of us here at MavRadio.fm, for Matt Kirkle, for all of our reporters, for our instructor, Jodeane Brownlee, thank you so much for tuning into, I almost said Haunted Heartland. I'm going to start that again.
That would have been awesome, though. Would it not have been?
That would have been awesome because it would have been
Also,
fun.
you guys, I would love, I put some Q&A, and I don't know if it went to me privately, but after you wrap this up, we could kind of do an after the show where we just talk about some of what people are going through right now. I would love to have that more as just documentation of this time. It doesn't have to be long, but yeah. So once you wrap that up, then you can say, okay, like let's do a segment after the show.
Okay.
That works.
As part of the wrap up.
No, do the wrap up.
Should I mention the after the show in the wrap up?
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to start again. Here we go.
And I'm going to go. Okay, hold on. I'm going to go to you. Speaker view.
Do you want me to start talking again? Hello.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Absolutely, Matt. Thank you. I echo every word you just said, and it's always fun to do one of these with you. So I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you for that. And for all of us here at MavRadio.fm, all our reporters, Jodeane Brownlee, our instructor, Matt Kirkholm, I have been Ben Helwig. Thank you so much for joining us for this 2020 edition of Earth Day. Stay safe, and remember to appreciate the earth that we call home.
Cash money.
Cash money.
It was going on Joey there on the end, but I think you can
I noticed it. If you want to redo it,
I wouldn't want to end with anyone else.
Yeah, if we get to end with Joey Colbert's sunglasses, I think that's the best way we could possibly end Earth Day.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I want.
I can't wait to see this. I think it was going to look really cool and sound awesome.
I was kind of debating whether or not to do the sunglasses. Glad I made it.
No, they work. They work.
It works well.
Makes us all feel so happy.
Especially my polo I'm wearing.
Wow.
It's my happy spring outfit.
So in terms of to do an after the show, but just I think some personal thoughts and feelings on this time that we're living in. You know, what has your experience? What have your experiences been? What about the news? If you guys want to, if there's any analysis or any thoughts on the coverage of this and how it might change the future of storytelling, those are things I'm really curious to hear from our students and the next generation of storytellers.
And I actually do, like, in terms of that statement that you just made about how news is being covered, like, I have some things to mention about that too. So I don't know if we want to, like, have everybody have a little 2 cents worth if they want to give it. I don't know how we want to set this up.
Yeah, and I think I'll keep it on the grid view so we're talking as a group. And I don't know who wants to lead the discussion, Matt, if you do, Ben, if you want me to, whatever, but I think that's important. And so feel free, everybody, to jump in when you have something that you want to add or say to the conversation. And again, I don't want to take too long with this because I know people are busy. Well, I don't know how busy you are, but you get you catch the drift. But again, I think it's actually very cool to have as an artifact for this time when we look back 10, 20 years from now and say, well, this is what we were feeling at the time. So Matt, Ben, I'll turn it over to you.
It sounded like you had stuff, so if you want to lead this baby,
yeah, I say I can. Do we want to have like a little opening, like we're doing like a post show? We want to have a little. Okay.
So
is this going to be as relevant to Earth Day as we can make it, or are we just trying to make this about our experiences right now as a whole?
I think, cute. I think really our experience as a whole.
Okay.
If there's any relationship we can. Again, I think everything is relatable to Earth Day. It's such a broad spectrum of what we can cover for Earth Day. By the way, it is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day as well. So I think there's some, I guess, I don't know if it's even ironic at all, but it's just really unusual that we're celebrating the Earth, yet, you know, the Earth is so, Mother Nature is like so big that every time we think we can control or contain it, it's kind of like she swoops in and does this whole, oh yeah, you think, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can start us off.
Okay.
I'll do similar to what Ben did with the beginning of the show. I'll kind of just give like a 5-second heads up, and then we can get started after that if we want.
Okay, and whenever you feel like it's kind of wrapping down, just go ahead and do an outro.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so in like 5 seconds I'll get started, so just heads up.
Okay.
What's up, guys? Welcome in. We had just finished celebrating our 50th anniversary of Earth Day in a much different fashion, behind our own computer screens, kind of cooped up in our own houses, and it brought up an interesting scenario when now we bring in a bunch of different journalism students here at UNO, a lot of Radio 1 faces, to talk about the different circumstances that are facing us in the current climate of this world with COVID-19 and the epidemic facing our world, and specifically us as journalism students. I know firsthand I've had to do one news pack so far during this COVID-19 pandemic, and my experience trying to come up with different material was definitely very interesting, to say the least. The most unique I've ever had to do. I mean, it came down to a bunch of different things. My package had to do with football players, and I couldn't even film these football players working out face to face because we weren't supposed to. And that creates a lot of obstacles when you can't even meet with the people that are the base of your story. And I think that's one thing that a lot of journalists are having to run into nowadays, is different situations where you can't even be in front of the person that you're trying to cover. And I think that creates a lot of obstacles in trying to make a story come to life. And one thing I found very interesting about this whole scenario is just the way reporters have had to go about covering COVID-19. And one thing in particular is the fact that it seems like information is constantly changing. I know that there's probably people that can back this up inside this chat right now, but it just seems like news is always changing with what the government wants of us in terms of government regulations, what businesses are doing, whether they're opening up, whether they're staying closed. It seems like day to day, numbers are changing, rules are changing, opinions are changing, and it's forced journalists to kind of be adaptive. We kind of have to be ready to change the narrative in the drop of a hat. It went from, a month ago, it was, is the NCAA tournament going to be played with or without fans? And then a week later, there's no NCAA tournament. And it's things like that where things have just changed so quickly that I don't know if anybody can back this up, but it just seems like journalists have to change completely the way they report normal news.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I had the opportunity to talk to Phil Bergman of KMTV. He was doing a story on, students not having, or, seniors not having a graduation ceremony. And I was just talking to him about what it's like to have to ask people to do interviews for stories. And it's like you said, Matt, you can't really talk to the people in front of you. You do it like us here on Zoom, or you stand 6 feet apart. And there are videos and photos all over Twitter and Facebook about people standing 6 feet apart. I mean, I remember driving to Target just the other day, and people are literally sitting in the Target parking lot 4 or 5 stalls apart, sitting on the trailer beds of their cars. And it's just so weird because that's the way people are socializing. There's stories everywhere, and it's always changing, like you said. I mean, one day you were allowed to go to the park, and now the next day there's a sign there that says, don't go into this tennis court or you could get fined. I mean, it's crazy. There's police cars parked in parking lots of these elementary schools asking kids to leave basketball hoops, and that right there is a story. It's a very different time we all live in. And like Matt mentioned in the actual Earth Day broadcast, this is history right here. This is something we're going to remember forever. This is going to be taught in textbooks, and we're all living it as a part of it. And it's just so strange, but it's also kind of humbling to remember how nice we had it. And now it's just going to be very different moving forward.
And I could piggyback, honestly, off of what you just said there in terms of interesting stories. I read something the other day about, police basically having to monitor neighborhoods for kids playing outside. And like you said, it's just crazy the history that's in front of us, the fact that, kids simply playing outside with one another, something that's been done for centuries, just kids socializing, having a good time, that's being restricted. And I think that that's something that is so unique and so interesting about this time, that things as simple as just close socializing is taken away. And regardless of how it's affecting journalism, it's crazy how it's affecting day-to-day life. And it's another thing we mentioned briefly on the Earth Day broadcast, but just the fact that something as simple as going out for a walk has become like a huge mental relief for a lot of people, including myself. Like I'm one of the people where I get really antsy really fast. Like I feel like I need to do something if I'm just kind of sitting doing nothing. And this kind of self-quarantine has made me kind of lose my mind a little bit, because it seems like more often than not, I'm looking for something to do and looking for a way to just release this cooped up feeling. And outside of journalism even, it's insane to see just how much COVID-19 has completely shifted the landscape of everybody's lives.
Yeah, and to go along with what you're saying, specific journalism stories such as like ESPN or sports, like they don't have anything to talk about. So that has changed that industry in like a huge way.
Well, I mean, and kind of piggybacking off that too is, I mean, not only is the sports industry shifted, it's completely, I mean, changed leagues. XFL has already declared bankruptcy because COVID-19 essentially eliminated their investment that they made at the beginning of the year to try to kickstart that league. So I think there's a lot of different, sports organizations, not just sports, everywhere, where finances have become a huge issue across the board, and companies are struggling to stay in business with all this stuff that's happened. So it's just crazy how widespread it is, with specific stories and just in a broad sense at how much the landscape has shifted everywhere with this outbreak.
Yeah, it's hard with graduation not happening because I was, I had everything planned out for the last semester, doing all my last everything. And then, after graduation, looking for jobs, but now everything's different. It's going to be harder to find jobs. I was supposed to work a lot to save up for moving somewhere. So it's just uncertain, and we're lucky in the field we live in that people are still actually like able to do stuff, like able to do stuff from home. But yeah, it's just an uncertain time in that regard.
And maybe maybe I should ask a question to everybody and kind of open it up and see what people have opinions on. But how has this maybe affected your guys' like work life? Like for me, for example, I know Lillian was saying that she's going to be heading back to work probably this week or next week. I know my golf course that I work at, we're opening up within the next week, and my boss is already looking for people to fill shifts. For you guys, is there maybe been a shift in looking for jobs or finding work, or whether it be with your current job or maybe a job you're looking for? How has your guys' work landscape shifted as a whole?
Well, I work at a grocery store. I work with Ben Helwig over at a grocery store, but it's ever since this whole thing started, it's been a panic mode at the store. Our hours changed from like 8 to 8. Now it's 8 to 10, but you see a lot of customers going through buying $1,000 worth of groceries, 4 carts full of groceries. You'd never know if it's just for them stocking up for the next few months or just giving out to food banks or anything. But throughout the last few times I've been working there, it's just we've been limiting toilet paper because we've just been running through that all the time, hand sanitizer as well. Now you're seeing customers wearing masks, they're wearing gloves. Now I have to clean my belt at my register every time I get a customer just to disinfect the belt, just to keep everything clean. It's clean the registers, clean the carts, clean everything. It's been a huge change at my store. And we have a restaurant there. With all the restaurants closing down, our restaurant's closed down, so we're just finding other things to do there.
Yeah, I think work's been crazy. I work in healthcare, so I know the way you treat people and the way you come in contact with them, it's very different. Yeah.
And I mean, specifically at the golf course I work at, we've completely shifted the way things run and things operate nowadays. I mean, we've completely flipped the cup now, like the hole. We flipped it upside down so that people aren't touching the bottom of the hole. They're just touching the ball every time they go in to pick up their putt. We've completely taken out flag sticks. That way people don't touch flag sticks. When people bring their carts in at the end of a round, we have to sanitize the entire cart before it goes back out. There's been a ton of shift in terms of the way we go about taking care of not only ourselves, but our customers. And I think that relationship is very important when you talk about work too. Not only keeping your employees safe, making sure, like when I have to wear gloves now, and they recommend we bring masks to work. And obviously those are hard to come by, but not only the way employees interact, but making sure your customers are staying safe on top of that. I think that balance for employers of trying to keep not only your employees safe, but still make revenue and make sure people are still coming in the door and keeping them safe. I think that is so interesting, that dynamic that's going on with COVID-19 right now.
I think
that's crazy. Sorry, Lillian, go ahead.
I think people too who haven't been working, it's creating a huge issue with mental health because you're used to being so busy all the time. I know I've lost motivation to do basic things. It's hard to really, when you're so, I think our generation has just been so used to being so busy. And so it makes it hard to just stop doing everything, especially people who are really extroverted. And, you know, and then it affects a lot of people financially too. I don't know about you guys, but I still haven't gotten an unemployment check, and I've been applying for the past like 3 weeks.
And for me, it's been no, go RC.
I was just gonna say I've actually been really lucky. The company I work for is an international company. We've been able to work from home, but the thing is, I work in the kind of like the corporate communications, internal communications, and with our facilities in India and Spain, that kind of thing, we've had to really scramble to get information out to our employees so they know what's going on. And, you know, when's their next check to be coming, what, you know, where are they going to do for time off, that kind of thing. So it's put a lot of stress on us to get that information out. But so far we've managed pretty well. And like I said, I'm really lucky because I get to work from home and I don't have to worry about those paychecks.
Yeah. I was gonna say similar to him. I'm working from home, and it's kind of weird. I would expect clients to not reach out as much, but doing videos, a lot of people want like videos edited that they've stocked up in piles. So I've been getting a lot of that work lately.
Jessica, working in healthcare, and then also for the folks there, even at the grocery stores, because I've been comparing truck drivers and service workers really as folks that are on the front line as healthcare workers. So all of these people who have made our country still run and function, it's been incredible. What about your own safety? How do you feel about that when you're at work?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes you don't even know who's coming in. I know it's hard to explain because everything changes so fast and everything changes very differently. You're there one day and everyone can come in, and then the next they're taking people's temperatures. And it was first for the patients that were coming in, and then it was for the employees. And then they started limiting us what doors we can come in and what doors we can come out. And then they started limiting us to how we clean, what we the mask we wear, and it's just you don't know if you're gonna get sick or if you're not, and if you do, I mean, what can you do? You just have to take leave basically. So it's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of not having control of what's going on and not knowing, and it's just you just take it day by day and just go with the flow and hope everything works out for the best. And I mean, that's all you basically can do until all this is over, and just want everything to go back to normal, basically, just over the situation, I think.
And I think oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jodeane, but I think that accurately assesses kind of the entire situation with not only our daily lives, but as journalists. I think that we kind of just have to go with the flow. We don't really know what the immediate future holds for us. Everything's kind of uncertain. I know that the cases in the state of Nebraska in the last week have doubled. And I know the projection of when we're supposed to hit our peak of number of cases is probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I know that it's probably pretty soon is when we're supposed to hit that high point. And I think the fact that there's still businesses trying to open up, even with all of this stuff still going on, it leaves a ton of question marks for a lot of different people, mainly people like Jessica, for example, who is a healthcare worker, and Joey and Ben, who work at a grocery store. I mean, these are people that have to be in front of everybody who potentially wants to come in and be a customer. And that leaves a lot of anxiety for workers and frankly for customers too. Like, I know my mom, she goes and picks up groceries from the grocery store, and she doesn't get out of her car. I mean, she picks it up through the pickup orders because she wants to interact with as little of people as possible. And I think that that's a measure that a lot of people have been starting to take. And I think that just the uncertainty and the go with the flow mentality that people have with COVID-19 is kind of creating more anxiety because people don't really know what to expect in the immediate future.
Well, I think
And that's where I was kind of reaching out on the on the putting all these pieces together, it sort of dovetails off what Lillian said with mental health. And I think after 3-4 weeks of being self-quarantined and having little interaction with the public as possible, I think that is going to be the next sort of tsunami type pandemic that we might not talk about as much as we need to. I don't know, again, but I think that's a really big underlying issue, is this mental health for people that are cooped up and people that aren't working, but people can't pay their bills. It's just such an incredibly, as Jessica said, uncertain time. And I think that is the remarkable thing about this.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see how people interact with you when they actually go and they talk to you. It's not the same, you know, they don't come in with a smile. Most of the people like that you get are very rude, and you're just surprised on like the change of behavior like that people get. And like, I get it, like if they're home all the time and, you know, things build up or whatever, but it's just very crazy to see. And like, I'm very curious to see like how people are going to interact after all this is over. Like, are we going to still distance from each other? Are we going to be the same? Like, you know, a couple weeks ago, it was perfectly fine to hug someone and show like affection and love. And now you can't even do that. Like, you're just trying to like stay away. And so it's kind of, I don't know. I just want to see what normal is going to be like once that time comes around.
I think we need to remember that this isn't necessarily a one-time thing. This isn't like a tornado or a hurricane or something. This isn't, you know, it's a 1 month and then everything goes back. I mean, could go on for years until there's a vaccine or something. We might have waves of unemployment or just having to shut down for a while until all this gets sorted out.
And to Jessica's last point, coupled with what Lillian said earlier about people getting antsy and wanting to get back out in the world. And I know Florida just like recently reopened some of their beaches, and 30 minutes to an hour later, it was completely packed. So people are, you know, itching to get back out in the world already, even though it's only been like a couple months.
And that's a prime example too, I think, of just how things, kind of to RC's point, this isn't going to be a one-time thing. This is going to be something that's going to gradually resolve itself. I mean, this is something I could see next October, next November, you know, probably less restrictions than we have now, but there still could be social restrictions as to how many people are allowed to gather. I mean, I still am not sure, me as a sports fan, I'm still not sure if we're going to have college or pro football next year. I'm thinking that we're probably not going to have them. I hope I'm wrong. But that being said, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think the fact that places like Jacksonville are trying to push people to get back to their normal lives, I think could just prolong this whole process even further if people are, you know, taking risks that they necessarily shouldn't be. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing to see over the next, you know, coming weeks or coming months, is just how not only we react in terms of finding ways to stay safe and not get out in the public, but how this all progresses, like Jessica said, when this is all over. I mean, this is going to be interesting because when it's over, it's not going to be over. We're still going to have restrictions as to how many people can be in certain places and things like that. So it's going to be an adjustment. I mean, it's going to be probably city or state by state kind of saying, okay, now we can meet in groups of 10, and then it'll be probably groups of 20, and it'll slowly go back to normal. But I mean, this is not something where overnight it's just going to be, oh, things are back to normal. And I think that's another thing that is very interesting about this whole development.
Yeah, my dad is a school administrator, and the governor is actually asking him and other districts to come up with a plan for the fall of what they're going to do if there's another outbreak. And they're thinking about either having like divide up classes, so like 10 kids come in 3 days a week and the other kids come in the other 2 days, and like things like that to make smaller classrooms realistic. And like we're thinking about new ways already about the next wave.
Well, I don't know. I think people will rebel. I don't think I could. I don't want to spend I have a different perspective. I don't want to spend my life hiding. I think things have to reopen eventually. I don't think I get like social distance measures, but I think things have to start to go back to normal. There's no way the economy can last a girl in California like killed herself because she was so depressed because everything that's happening. I just don't think I could do it for like much longer. I don't think a lot of extroverted people are having a really hard time. So I think they're just I don't think that it will I think things will change, maybe numbers at places, but I don't think that this will last as long as everyone thinks it will, like with my work already opening up. Yeah, so that's my unpopular opinion.
I do know some places they're planning on, if they're working from home, they're going to stay at home for like the next year. And that's what a lot of places are doing. And then my restaurant I work at, they are deciding to open like a quarter of the restaurant and then slowly open more and more parts of the restaurant over time, just in case something were to happen again. So I could see people opening it up slowly, but a lot of people, like my roommate, like calls people, he's going to stay at home probably for the foreseeable future.
And maybe I'll ask one kind of final question that maybe people can touch on if they have anything to say about it. But just how do you guys think this all is going to resolve itself? And I know that's a very broad question because like we've been talking about, this is going to be a huge process with a million different pieces, and it's probably going to be very complicated over the next year, year and a half. But with businesses, with your own personal lives, whatever the case may be, I just kind of want to get your thoughts on how you think this all is going to kind of come to an end, whether it's going to be a very slow process that takes years, or maybe this kind of wraps up and ends itself by the end of the summer. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think we got to let it run through its course until we can go back to normal. That's just what I believe. Even though we want to go back to what we've been doing the last month, we're just going to have to wait for this to end before we could actually do our normal activities, such as going to the gym, going to a restaurant, going to the movies, physically going to school, seeing our friends. So pretty much we're just going to have to let it run through its course.
I agree with Joey because like I myself have my own mental health issues and I want to get out in the world, but I know that's not going to help anything. So if we reopen everything too soon, it's just going to get worse and we're going to prolong it. So as much as it seems like we're shortening our quarantine by opening things up soon, that's just not the reality because it will get worse and then we'll have to do everything again for possibly a longer period of time. So I think what Joey said is we really just have to wait this out, and hopefully if people start taking this seriously, we'll be able to see a shorter timeline.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think things will change and restaurants and things will be different, but I think people just will rebel and won't let it stay everything closed that long just because, like I said, people want their jobs back. I think that you can't hide forever. Like, I agree with social distancing and changing things for a bit, but I just think it has to open back up. Life has to continue on.
Being like optimistic, just as soon as this whole thing came and this pandemic like started, I think it could end just as fast. Like, we just don't know.
I will say I'm encouraged because things in China look like they're starting to open back up. Wuhan had traffic for the first time in a very long time, I believe last week. Chinese Professional Baseball League has started back up, albeit without fans, but I mean, those have been really exciting to watch. The Rockton Monkeys have quite the batting order. Got to throw up the bullpen. I've been getting up at 5:30 for those games. But no, in all seriousness, I think I'm encouraged by the positive attitude of people. I think we've done a nice job, at least starting to flatten the curve. And who knows? I think now is a good time. If you happen to believe in something in a higher power, I think now is part of the time where you kind of hold on to those things. And I think that's encouraging.
I think that's an excellent note to end on, Ben. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you, everybody in this chat right now, for just touching in on such an interesting time in our lives right now where we don't really know what the immediate future holds. But for those of you who tuned into the Earth Day broadcast as well, thank you for tuning into that, along with our post-show talking about the world of journalism and outside of that with COVID-19. Thank you all for tuning in. Killer. Y'all are awesome.
That
Y'all
was
are amazing.
really, really insightful. And I think for me, if anything, that was just really good for me to just hear from you guys and and hear your thoughts and what you're thinking. And it's okay to have different opinions. I'm glad we do. And because nobody knows what the future is going to be. You guys just stay safe. And we'll do whatever it takes to keep people safe and get our message out.
Amen.
So
Amen.
thank you all. Thank you all.
Good job, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
job, everybody. Thank you.
I'll send this to you guys once it's finished.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Sounds
Nice
good.
seeing all of you.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Good job.